Howdy, howdy, howdy. What's going on, people? Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about cleaning rocks and minerals with acids and cleaners. You can kind of see some of the cleaners that we have up there and a couple samples of some rocks down here. So let's kind of dig right into it. So starting with that ZEP right there, that calcium, lime, and rust remover, that's probably one of the cheapest ways that you can kind of start this whole process of cleaning rocks, along with the Dawn soap. Dawn soap is one of the best soaps to kind of remove that grease, some of the just dirt and debris from rocks that you get. You can kind of see like this quartz from Arkansas. It's a brilliant quartz piece, but you can kind of see the dirt in between all the crystals, as you can see right there. You can kind of see all the little dirt spots all up through there. So usually what I will tell people and how I kind of do when I find rocks is I'll usually soak them in a soapy bath at first. Now, you want to kind of dilute everything, especially when you're dealing with chemicals like the muriatic acid and the ammonia that we'll get to here later on. But with just soap, I always start off with like a soapy water mix. You can kind of do whatever you want. I usually do like a 3-to-1 ratio. I like it nice and soapy, so 3 parts soap, 1 part water. Make it nice soapy. And then usually I'll leave that water a little warm. That kind of accelerates a lot of the things when you're cleaning. So warm but not hot. It kind of helps everything loosen up. And then also with some tools while you're doing that. So I'll usually leave that soap bath. I like to leave it in there for at least 24 hours to really kind of dig into a lot of those crevices of a lot of these rocks, as you can see. And it'll dig in there and you can kind of clean up a lot of that stuff. You can kind of see with those cavities, kind of like up in that one, it's going to take a little while to clean up all those little cavities through there. So 24 hours. And then tools you can use, like this little pick is really nice. So if you get some of those cavities that just really aren't loosening up and you really want to kind of remove that debris, little picks, brushes, anything you can kind of find to kind of get a lot of that debris off is really going to help you out. And even if you loosen it up, kind of poke around some of the crystals and maybe you want to try to clean up and then put it back into that bath. I suggest always kind of replacing what you're using. Basically meaning that if I'm doing a bath and then I'm doing an acid bath, I'm not going to want to put it into that same soapy bath that I did to start with, because it's kind of contamination. Cross-contamination is basically rock's biggest enemy. You don't want to do that. That kind of goes along with polishing as well. That's how people get really frustrated with the whole polishing and even tumbling, because it's already a long process, and when you don't clean and take the effort, the extra time to make sure everything's cleaned up, you won't get the best results that you want. And if you're going to spend the time doing it in the first place, take that extra little bit of time to make sure everything's super clean. So you got the calcium, lime, rust remover. A lot of rocks have calcium. You can kind of see this petrified wood. A lot of calcium, a lot of common opal. But calcium, you're going to see it's going to be kind of like that white coating on rocks. So you kind of got this. This is kind of like a calcium buildup. And a lot of this stuff you can kind of just wash away with, we got brushes that you can kind of brush this away just with water in your sink. But if you're going to do that, you might as well just clean the whole rock. And that's why I like to do the soapy bath. And then along with the soapy bath, like with the Dawn, I'll use some vinegar. Vinegar is one of the best cleaning agents in the world. I mean, you can use vinegar on everything, floors, bathrooms. And it does great for hardwood floors. Petrified wood, believe it or not, it does great for that. And cleaning rocks. So making your own little kind of chemical cocktail will kind of just depend on what you're cleaning. Now, you don't want to be, you can kind of get crazy into the whole iron outs, muriatic acids, and ammonias, but you really want to do your research. You don't want to be doing that on a delicate rock. If you have a really nice fluorite that's delicate, though, like a small crystal, you don't want to be using those harsh chemicals. And if you do, you only want to be using them for a short period of time. And we'll kind of get into that as well. Timing is kind of everything with a lot of this stuff. But vinegar mixed with the Dawn is a nice kind of combo as well. So moving right along to the iron out. Iron out is maybe one of the first chemicals that you hear about when you talk about cleaning rocks. And Colorado is big for the whole smoky quartz. So you got amazonite here as well, but this is what a lot of people will dig for, is a lot of this smoky quartz. And it has a lot of the iron content. You can kind of see up in it a lot of that red. And you know, smoky quartz is just black, but you kind of get all that residue from the iron through there, and you can clean that. So we kind of made a little mixture right there of that iron out with some water, and you can kind of see a bubble right away as soon as you put it in there. So it means that it's working, and that's always a nice indication when you're working with chemicals. Is it working? How do I know? How long do I keep it in there? It really is just an experimental thing. I always start with a small piece first, and then you can work on your bigger pieces after that. So work on a small piece, kind of test it out. So if it does get ruined, you know, it's just a small piece. You don't have to cry too hard about that. You can kind of see that's working its magic like that right there. And like I said, we can do the same thing with all these chemicals. We can do that soapy bath first, and then we can do the chemical bath. But it's crucial and very important to make sure after this process, whatever, you can leave this in for an hour, check it out, test it. I like to leave it in there a little bit longer. I'm one of those kind of 24-hour guys. Take it out, clean it, dry it, evaluate what it looks like, and then put it into a soapy bath for the same amount of time that you do your chemical bath. And that's very important to kind of stop the chemicals from leaching in and kind of ruining your crystal or your mineral, whatever you're dealing with. So you can kind of see how those bubbles are just working with that. So we'll just leave that there for now, that smoky quartz. And so that's the iron out. Iron out's super popular. I mean, you can get it at pretty much any hardware store. I get it from Home Depot. And it's nice because you don't have to use a lot. I do that more of a 3-to-1 ratio. Sometimes you can use this 2-to-1 ratio. The bigger rock you do, you want to kind of lessen up that ratio just because of that surface area. You don't want to use more. You kind of almost want to use less with a bigger piece, just so it kind of takes time and it can kind of really sink into everything that you're dealing with. Now, one of the dangerous chemicals that you have here, this one will really get the job done, but it'll also ruin your rocks in a really quick amount of time. Now, you know, like I said, for the other ones, I like to do the 24-hour bath. This one, you don't even want to do really more than a couple hours, if that, even a couple minutes. And you can kind of see what'll happen when you do play with it. And we'll test it out here today on this piece of opalized wood. Hydrochloric acid, also known as muriatic acid. That was something that, you know, looking, researching, you'll kind of get the different names, but basically it's a concrete etcher. It really breaks down the calcium deposits on rocks. Limestone, iron, it kind of does all that too, but this is such more of a concentrated chemical that it really will break stuff down. You can kind of see here. So what I'll like to do, and we're not going to do in this video, but you can put this in a small kind of like beaker or you know, a small glass, and then kind of brush it with a brush stroke over your mineral. And that's kind of nice because you don't add a lot to it, but you can kind of see it working away, and it'll do the same like the whole iron out does. It will bubble, but it will bubble rapidly. And another thing with this stuff, I almost do opposite for the ratio of cleaning. So I'll usually do a 4-to-1. So I'll do 4 parts water and 1 part muriatic acid, just because it's so kind of crazy. And you kind of see all the warnings on the label. It's a powerful chemical. It really is, but it will do its job. But so I'll usually do the 4-to-1 water, 2 acid, and then I'll do double the amount of time for my bath at the end, that soapy bath, just to make sure that it stops, because this stuff will keep working. And you'll notice that if you use it, I'll do it outside a lot of the times. You want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area because it will mess you up. It will burn your hands. It is a serious stuff. You can kind of see that's why I have gloves on today. Safety first. Goggles. You want to make sure you have all that stuff when working with this stuff because it can really mess you up when you play with it. So, kind of going on this piece, let's kind of see if it does anything on this guy. So you can kind of hear some of the sizzling up through there. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. So you get a little bit of the sizzle, not a lot. And the reason why I like to do it on petrified wood is basically just because this stuff has a lot of calcium, the stuff from Colorado. So you'll see it fizzle a lot of the times, and we might get a little bit better of an action on the backside. But yeah, you can kind of hear that sound. a little bit better. And then maybe we'll go outside and try another piece, because it's kind of fun to see it actually fizzle and actually work. So let's see if we can do this right here. There we go. You can kind of hear that sound right there. Fizzle, fizzle. You can kind of see how it's kind of even on the concrete too. It's etching, and that's kind of what you'll get. Same thing with that concrete in between the bricks right there. You'll kind of get that in a lot of these minerals as well. But yeah, you'll kind of get that fuzz on the bubbling, and that's when you know it's working. But definitely want to make sure you do a bath at the end of it after you're done with using this. So that is the whole hydrochloric acid. And then ammonia, we kind of got the ammonia last right there. You don't have to get so technical and use all these different chemicals. It really just depends what you're digging with. If you're just digging for quartz, I would just go with iron out and soap, and that's going to do most of your work that you really want. But with the ammonia, it's just another agent to kind of remove dirt. And basically ammonia, you can even use Windex, the window cleaner that has ammonia in it. And that's where I clean a lot of my rocks at the end too. Removes fingerprints, everything else too. But ammonia does a great job of cleaning stuff as well. So another part to kind of end the video. So after the whole chemical bath that you do, you can do a baking soda kind of soapy mix too. Baking soda kind of basically stops the process of the chemicals from bubbling, neutralizes it. It's kind of nice to stop that, especially when using some of the more powerful acids like the ammonia, muriatic acid. Using baking soda will stop that process, and it's kind of nice just to kind of restart doing that, dipping that in there before you kind of go to your soapy bath. So water bath at the end. Baking soda is always helpful. 2 to 3 parts of acid per 1 part of water. That's just a good way of cleaning your minerals. And then for other parts of tools, pick up a pair of just used tongs. Old tongs you're maybe going to throw out. Always use a utensil to put your rocks into your container. I'll use a lot of these portable little containers, little plastic ones. Mason jars work good, old mason jars. Buckets, you can kind of see some of the buckets that we have there. Basically containers that aren't gonna be delicate. Glass or plastic, always you want to use, just to make sure everything's all safe and good. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So it's always an experimental thing. I mean, we deal with all kinds of minerals that we're still trying to find the perfect cocktail concoction for acids. And it's always kind of a journey, but always start small and work your way up. That's probably the best advice I can give you. And I hope everyone has learned something from this video. I know I'm still learning on dealing with chemicals and cleaning minerals. So I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.